This morning we were talking about prepping and preparing boats, even furniture for cleaning and for painting purposes. But one of the things we have to do first is to be able to remove the old coatings that are on the wood. Some wood may just need a light scuffing, you'll put another coat on, but all these different woods do have special needs. One of the problems that some of the older woods have is they contain lead. And lead, as we know, is a contaminant, and it can get into you and it doesn't go away, it builds up. So one of the things you want to do is be able to test any doubtful wood. If there's an old piece of furniture that's pre-1970, the chances are it will have lead in it. And you can actually buy a little lead kit here. And this little lead kit will give you enough solution to make four tests. And one of the tests is you just grab the little bottle, and you have to have a little test tube you can actually put samples into and mix it with it. But what we're going to do is just see if there's any lead in here. Now, number one, I tried this one out to make sure, because it was very, very old. Number one, we're just going to try this here because this is some wood that we're going to be using, and it's still white, as you can see. And that's what you want, still to be white. Now, on this piece of wood here, this is a pre-1970s paint job. So what I'm looking for is to see if this changes color. So we're just going to rub this over a little bit of sanding that I've done here. And what we want to see if it changes color. And as you can see, it's getting darker than that is. And it's still getting darker now. I tried this as a sample last night. I let this one stand overnight. And you can see how much difference it got because the chemical in that little vial kept on working. So we know that this piece of wood, this pre-1970 paint, has got lead in it. See, it's going darker again already. Now, if you find lead in your wood that's going to be prepared, there's different ways you can go. You don't want to be inhaling this lead in any way, shape, or form. And this is a regular dust mask, and this is a good dust mask if we're going to be just sanding regular paint that doesn't have lead in it. It keeps it, the majority out of your lungs. It works. But for lead, you do have to have some special filtration. And this is one here, and that you can use for just small jobs. It's a 3M product, and it's good for lead. Also, too, it filters out asbestos. Asbestos is another problem that you can run into if you're dealing with old machinery, and asbestos is something you don't inhale either. So this has got special filters in here, plus charcoal filters, so that when you're breathing in here, anything is being absorbed by all that material, and once you finish your job, you take it off and throw it away. Okay, so now we've determined whether our piece of wood is lead-free, which it is, so we can be using a regular dust mask. For my small test I'm going to be doing, I'm just going to show you how this works. If I put the dust mask on, you won't be able to hear me talking. So we're just going to just pretend I'm wearing this mask here and to keep the dust out. So number one is a lot of folks sand wood, or sand paint to get the paint on. The problem with that is that you're creating a lot of dust, and you're not actually getting down to where it actually is going in the wood. In fact, by sanding like this, you're actually sanding the pigments of the old paint into the grain of your wood, and it's going to become more of an issue than you think. So my advice is, and I tell everybody, never sand paint. And this is a quick touch-up, you want to scrub it, but never sand paint. You want to be able to scrape the paint off, sand the wood. That's what sandpaper is for, is sanding wood, not necessarily for sanding paint. So the trick I use, not a trick, but I use a heat gun. And this is a fairly decent one. I'll just talk for a minute. You need at least 1500 watts. This is one here from, it came from Canadian Tire, one of the box stores. Basically, it's a glorified hair dryer, and it doesn't have enough peak BTU output to actually work. So you want something that's pretty decent. So I'll just show you how it kind of works. Okay, so as you can see, the paint's starting to blister here, and that's what we're looking for, is to blister. And then as you just go forward slowly, and you're just scraping off the paint. You know, to get that much paint, as you can see, that's quite a lot of paint. It would take a long time for you to sand that down to this wood here. And already what's happening is that I'm starting to see grain structure of wood starting to show up. So this is now ready for sanding. You do the whole piece, and I will just show you in a second what the difference is now with the sander. Okay, we're still looking at prepping this piece of wood, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a piece of decent grade sandpaper on here, just to show you a bit of a contrast in what we're doing. I'm not going to put a mask on because we're going to be not going to be that long. So this is a very coarse grade of sandpaper, and this is what a lot of people use when they're going to be prepping their wood. So it's going to be a bit noisy. So as you can see, that was a lot of sanding, and we've got paint coming off. But this paint, although this is a vacuum, now if you're in a marina, all this paint does is often sun in the breeze, getting into the water, getting on other people's boats. A lot of marinas or boat facilities, if you're do sanding or grinding, you have to put a tent over what you're doing. So basically what we're going to do, we're going to put another piece of sandpaper on here. I just love these Velcro ones. So this is a very fine grit. It's even finer than what we used for this. So basically we're down to something here, but as you can see, all that paint now is right inside of the grain of the wood. So all the sanding in the world, you're not going to get that out. In fact, what's going to happen, you start getting your wavy in the wood. It's going to look terrible. So now we've got that scraped. As you can see, it's come off in nice big particles, which you can vacuum up and keep out of the environment. So I'm just going to give it a light touch here with some fine grit sandpaper to show you how far we got. So as you can see, we're down to the wood, and what we're getting now is getting sawdust, which is what you want, because now we're down to the wood. And with this one, there's all kinds of paint in the grain. In here, there's no paint in the grain. So if you're going to be returning this to a natural finish, which I think somebody should do, because this is a piece of teak. This teak is worth $49 a square foot, board foot, I should say. So this little piece of wood here is probably close to $100 in teak. So myself, I would take this back to a piece of regular teak with a nice finish on it. Now, we still have to prep the wood so that we're ready for whatever finish we're going to go with, whether it's going to go with a paint, or we're going to go with maybe a varnish or another type of oiling. But anyway, we'll have a look at that just a second. So in prepping the wood now, what has to happen is that the infamous tack cloth comes into play, because you want to be able to get any dust out of the off the wood in preparation for your finish. Now then, there's different ways you can go, and there's some people use a menthol hydrate, some people just use a paint thinner or a solvent, which works. But the problem with solvent, and also some people just use, they say, oh, kerosene is the same as paint thinner. Basically it is. It's just there's a little different grade of it. So they use either kerosene, or they use solvent, or they're going to use menthol hydrate. The problem with menthol hydrate is it actually is a petroleum distillate. So there's still oil in there that's going to get into your wood and affect any of the finishes that you're going to be putting on. So the preferred method I use is marine alcohol. It's not cheap. You're probably looking at about $20 for a quart of this particular material. The thing is, this is from a vegetable product. Basically, it's ethanol. This is the same stuff that it's from corn, and this is what people you find in your gasoline now. Some places are up to 15% ethanol, because it's cheaper than actually pumping the oil out of the ground. So they're putting this stuff in your gasoline and causing issues with it if the motor's not properly prepared. But ethanol for us is a good thing because it is a vegetable base. So here's my infamous tack cloth. So I'm going to put a little bit on the cloth here. It doesn't have to be soaking wet, just so that it gets tacky, right? Because what you want to be able to do is soak up any of the dust that's left in the wood. So we're going to just do this with the ethanol. And you can see, I should have used a white cloth. You can actually see more coming up. But this is basically, and also too, by doing this, the actual true color of the wood comes about, because being a very thin material, it's actually thinner than water. It goes into the fibers of the wood substructure, and it actually helps the adhesion of the material that you're putting on, whether it be varnish and or paint. So now we're going to have a look at the same idea, but this time it's a piece of varnished wood. I don't know exactly what kind of material's on here, but it is an older surface for sure. And as yet, I've never run across any lead in any of these older finishes. Basically, it's in the opaque paint structure ones like white and black and green and blue. But in the clear base, I've never found any lead at all. So, but you can test it if you want to, but normally it's just fine. So now we have a piece of wood that's been varnished, and we're going to use the same method that we used for this, and we're going to prep this one for more varnish going on, or possibly oil. If you're looking for a yacht finish, then glossy varnish may be the way you want to go. I've been using oil to a great extent, and I prefer the drying oil to the varnishes. You don't get quite the higher gloss, but they're a lot easier to maintain. So first of all, we got to take that surface off. So we're going to use exactly the same method that we used for this one. So I'm just going to, as you can see, it does roll around. So some of it comes off in sheets. There's a whole sheet of it coming off there. Oh, it's hot. So anyway, it's coming off, and it's actually coming off very, very easily, as you can see. And what I've discovered is, just right now, that here's another piece of teak. So this is another piece of wood that's definitely worth saving at the price of teak these days. But it's something you probably would not be putting a white coat of paint on, or green or blue. You're probably finishing it with an oil or a finish. Okay, so now we've basically got the finish off this piece of wood, and we're just going to prep the piece of wood for further coatings. Now I'm just going to go straight to our alcohol here, which is corn alcohol, ethanol. It's basically, they make it poison by putting, I think, a little bit of methyl hydrate in it, because basically this is grain alcohol, and the percentage would be like way over 100% alcohol, but you can't drink it because it will kill you because of this stuff that's in there. That's why they put the poison in this stuff to stop people from drinking the stuff. Anyway, so we've got our alcohol in our rag, and we're going to clean it all up. There's some dripping all over the place here. Oh, look at the color that's coming up on that. That's amazing. Amazing. So we can let that dry for a minute. I'm just going to talk about finishes. I'm a big believer in oil. This is a Watco Deck Soleil, and it comes in a matte finish. It comes in a shinier finish as well. But if you go whatever finish you're going to put on, if it's Deck Soleil, you have to put on this one first, because this one saturates the wood. And 3 or 4 coats of this, and you're basically good to go for weather resistance and everything else. The other way to go is to put a varnish on. This is a Old Masters Spar Marine Varnish. There's lots of Spar varnishes out there made by Interlux, and they're all good products. The problem I have with them is that if they start to peel, you have to start taking it all back off again, or just touching up areas, and then you never get the same color on them, and it looks all blotchy and nasty. But with the oil, what you can do is that just a light scuff with one of those green pads. I was going to grab one for my demonstration, I forgot. The same as what I would scrub this up with, just for putting another coat of paint on the white. This one here, it's the same idea. If you got oil on here, the Waco oil, a light scrub with the green, I don't know what they call them. You use it for dishes, and you use them for cleaning dishware and things like that. Anyway, so now we've got this prep surface. It's dry, so we're going to grab my big brush just to give you an idea of what's happening here. So now this is the Waco oil going on, and as you can see, you're getting a real good, true representation of what that teak is supposed to look like. Even with the ethanol going on there, it was actually getting kind of dark. But actually, some teaks are different than others, but this is actually quite a nice piece of teak. Came off a boat, but they're still usable teak. You can make plugs out of it. You can use all sorts of things, even with all the holes in here, or cut a few strips out for edging of a project. So that's looking quite nice, that color. So once the oil goes on, one thing I like about oil is that you leave it on for 5 minutes, and then you get a cloth and you rub off the excess. And you do that about 4 or 5 times, and then you start building up a surface or fill up the grain of the wood, and you'll get to a state whereby actually the surface starts to develop. And I don't have a finished piece here, but the finished piece, once you get about 4 or 5 coats of the Waco oil on it, starts to look more like a proper finish. But to me, oiling is the way to go. So you put that on there, let it dry. You can actually put it on a rag. You can actually rub the stuff on if you want to, which I probably prefer. So you can just keep on building it up and up and up. Now the same with this piece over here. Did we ethanol this one? I can't remember. I think we did. Let's just do this again. So same thing. We're going to put our ethanol on here. Get the sawdust out of the grain, and then once it dries quite quickly, we can get our little brush here, and we're going to, because this is a piece of teak, I wouldn't want to put white paint back on this. Actually, we've got some real nice pieces in the basement, in our wood cribs, of this in longer pieces, so you could really manufacture yourself up some really nice teak at a decent price, you know. Because now, because we found there's no lead in it, we can actually put this through the planer, and we can take the finish off with our planer, and it saves a lot of time and effort, and it makes gets the wood all prepped for this particular next stage. So that's ethanol on there. So now we're going to do, and here's another no-no. I should be putting this into another can, because this way, if I pick up a contaminant and I go back into there, I've contaminated the whole container. Whereas if I had a small container, I just contaminate that small amount. So anyway, seeing that, let's dip it again. So now we're going to be putting this on. That is very, very dry teak, and it is really soaking it up. That little brush fold didn't go very far at all. Nice. So as you can see, that piece of teak this is more of a red structure. This is more of a darker, more neutral teak. So in the teak family, to replace a piece of teak, you do have to watch what you're doing, because if you're trying to replace something like this would be too dark of a piece. But now we've salvaged 2 pieces of wood. We showed you a good way to do it. A small recap. If it's got lead in it, or you don't know, it's really old, get yourself a little test kit. These are worth $20, and it gives you 5 tests. So it's like $5 a test, and it gives you little containers, a little container like that you can put chips into, and test it overnight for a longer soak, just to make sure that there's no lead going into your body or into the environment.